afternoon, Hotline.
Hey, Jeff, how you doing?
Pretty good. Dan Francis.
I just pulled up the City Council agenda for tonight, City Council meeting. I had a couple of questions, and maybe the citizenship of the listening audience might be interested, too.
Right.
You've got about a dozen resolutions that you're going to pass, authorize, and what have you?
Yeah, let me try to... Yeah, go ahead and talk. I'm going to try to find the...
It's on News Junkie, around the front page.
Right, I'm looking for it now.
And I had a couple of questions about resolution number 1, which is the appointment of the John Johnson from the Watertown Daily Times publisher, editor, owner to DANC.
Right.
A couple of questions here. This is an automatic done deal, so my question was there a public hearing about these appointments before they're made, or just you guys just bless it based upon DANC's recommendation?
Well, there was there are 2 city-appointed representatives to the Development Authority Board. They serve 5-year terms. One of those terms was coming due this year, and that was occupied by Beth Phipps. And she indicated to the council in a letter a few weeks ago, a month ago maybe, that she was not interested in being considered for reappointment. So at that particular council meeting, there had been a couple of people who had expressed interest. One of them was Mr. Johnson, not directly, but one name that had been suggested was Mr. Johnson, and then another person. And I said at the council meeting, we've got this vacancy, and a couple of names have been floated. The council should put some thought into it. In the ensuing weeks, Mr. Johnson called me, set up an appointment, came over and saw me, expressed his interest in it. We talked about it a bit. Obviously he's got some familiarity with the issues and pretty good advocate for the city and all of that. I mean, he's also a publisher of a paper, which is, is something that he has to deal with in terms of any potential conflict there. But he made his case to me, and I said, well, you've got to make the case to the members of the city council, and if you've got support for it, there's no problem with you being appointed. And apparently he made that case, and there was, a consensus that to go ahead and appoint him.
Well, I don't know if the public has read into this as much as you just explained it, and I have read most of that myself in the paper. This is what raises my concern. He is already a board member, but he's a non-voting board member currently.
Right. I'm not sure that that board member status
he
continues. That was a gubernatorial thing. I don't know if that appointment continued or not, or whether it's gone now.
I went into the public record and I looked at it. He is a non-voting member of the board of directors right now, which means he doesn't influence anything that happens on their decisions.
Well,
but this appointment now makes him a voting member. It raises some concerns in my mind, because we're talking about public monies that are going to be expended by a man who has a lot of influence through the media, as you just pointed out.
Right.
In the counties that this bank operates in, I just think there's a real but a perceived conflict of interest by him wielding the power of the media and the press, and also having a vote on how public monies are spent.
Well, all of us grapple with conflicts at times, and obviously in this case, yes, there is a conflict, but it's just a question of how you deal with it, and in that case, he has to deal with that. I mean,
that comes back to my original question: was the public ever tied into this on having a concern to say we don't think that somebody like this should be appointed to a position where there's public monies involved? Nothing.
Well, a lot of these boards and so on, they become problematic. There really isn't, as you can see with city council races and everything else, not a lot of interest in being on these bodies. DANC is kind of and I told Mr. Johnson this when I met with him. I said, frankly, John, I am not a fan of DANC or its continued existence, but I understand it is there. It is part of the landscape, and, you seem to have a pretty good knowledge of it, and just know my viewpoint going in, that I'm not necessarily a big regionalist, but...
Okay, the point I wanted to, I'll just end. I just wanted to throw this out there for the public to know. This is a very powerful position for him to be in as the controller of the media here in about 3 counties, basically. It's a major...
with all due respect, I don't know if, given the state of the newspaper industry now, I'm not sure it's safe to say, as you would 30, 40 years ago, that somebody controls the media.
Well, I don't want to be misunderstood on this. I'm not taking that away from him, but I'm saying that now him having that position aside, and now having a major vote on how public monies are expended, I think really raises a serious concern.
Well, you know, if anything, his status as a voting member, you know, is more credible than that previous arrangement where you're sort of just this amorphous non-voting member that's just sort of put there as, you know, for. I didn't understand the reasoning behind that. I think it better to be a voting member and actually somebody who was appointed by one of the constituent bodies. Listen, I mean,
that's not exactly true either. We have the Washington, D.C. delegate, the United States Congress is there as a delegate and a representative, but she has no vote.
Yeah, and I don't agree with that.
That's kind of a moot point. But anyway, I just wanted to express it. I don't know how many people in the public have the same feeling on it. Maybe they don't have any feeling at all. I don't know whatsoever. It just kind of stuck out in my mind. I just thought that there is a conflict there. It's obviously a conflict. And I think because public monies are involved in him having a vote one way or the other, and then peddling it, selling it, marketing it to the media, I think, to me, I have some concerns with that. That's all. That's my point I wanted to raise.
Point made, and I appreciate the call. Thanks. Anything else, Dan?
Nope, that'll take care of that.
Okay. Thanks. Bye now. Good afternoon, Hotline.
Good afternoon.
What's up?
Not much. Another way you could look at it is this. He's always been accused of being the chairman of the board of the so-called, what do we used to call it there, the shadow government. At least now you'll know how he votes.
That certainly is one way to look at it, yes.
Well, of course it is. I mean, if you've been accused of that, now all of a sudden he's going to be on there and it's all public record. Now you'll know how he really feels.
Right. Well, it'll be interesting. We'll see tonight.
That should wipe the slate clean.
What do you think about the other issues of the day?
The Sarah Palin thing, I think you're right on the money. I think she's hurt herself by quitting